Hello students, welcome to a new chapter. This is chapter number 6, which will focus on implementation, and that is step number 3 in our framework. Remember, in the previous chapters we talked about the first step, which was needs analysis, and then the second step, which was the design of training initiatives, and now we will focus here in this chapter on the implementation of our training or HRD programs. As always, here are your learning objectives for this chapter. Okay, to begin with, we need to know that we couldn't implement a training program unless we have already identified what training gaps are there. And then unless we have identified our objectives, our lesson plans, all the steps that we have identified in the design of the training program. And in order for us to implement a training program or an HRD initiative, we need to be aware of this fact that there is a lot of preparation that needs to take place. There is a lot of effort and investment in terms of even money and time that must be taken into consideration before implementing a training program. And then we need to also make sure that we have prepared our assessments. So meaning that, assessment of the training initiative itself, and then assessment that we are going to hand out to our trainees. So a lot of preparation, a lot of things that must happen before, during, and after the training program or the HRD initiative has taken place. And since we are talking about implementation, we must also discuss the delivery methods, so the different training methodologies that are available to us. But before we dig deeper into the actual steps, the details of those training methodologies, we have to know that we need to consider the level of experience that our trainees or learners have. We mentioned more than once that when you train managers, people with 15 years of experience, is of course going to be different from training fresh graduates, people who have no prior experience whatsoever. So we need to understand that experience is an important factor in determining the level of training methods that we must implement and undertake. So the whole point of training, the whole point of the learning experience, is to help build the experience of our trainees, of our learners. But also the level of experience that they have is going to affect and influence the type of training methods that we will use with them. Now, an interesting tool that will help us determine which training methods are more suitable for our trainees based on their level of experience, based on their level of expertise, is something here called the learning pyramid. The learning pyramid. What this tells us is that novice learners, novice meaning new learners, those who do not possess a lot of expertise, those novice learners will typically get more confused than those with more levels of experience, as you can imagine. As we mentioned before, someone with 15 years of experience, someone who has worked as a manager for 5 to 10 years, is of course going to have more expertise. You can expect them to be more confident when it comes to their knowledge, skills, abilities on the job. So what this pyramid, what this tool is telling us is that new learners, novice learners, will typically need more guidance, will need more instructions from the trainer. But those with more experience, those with more expertise, are more confident, and therefore you can use different methods of training with them. So you can use different categories of training methods when you are teaching or training experienced learners, and you must choose different training methodologies when you are training or teaching novice learners, new learners, those who are more confused. And as we will see later on, we basically have two main categories of these training methods. Some are instruction based and some are experience based. So when training novice learners, you will use more instructions, but when training Experienced learners, you will use more experiential training methods. This is an illustration of this learning pyramid that we are talking about. As you can see on the bottom, you have those novice learners. So in here, these people need more guidance. They are more confused. They are more worried, more anxious, and therefore they need one-on-one learning. They need a coach. They need a trainer. But the higher you go up the pyramid, you become more experienced, and then you are more confident, and therefore you do not need a lot of guidance. I can just give you the material and you can study it yourself, but you need more challenge. You need more creative ways and innovative ways to help you learn and to help you challenge yourself. So these are the two basic categories that we have been talking about: experiential versus instruction-centered approaches. So this is a categorization of training methods. So you have training methods that are more based on experience, where the the trainees are experiencing things themselves and doing it themselves. It's more self-effort. And then instruction-centered approaches, where the trainer and the instructor does most of the work. Okay, so as you can see, these experiential methods generally require more time, of course, because there's a lot of preparation that needs to be taken before these methods can be implemented. And then, of course, individuals must first learn what to do before they can learn how to do it. So you have to explain the theories, the concepts, all the steps that underlies these concepts, and then you can give your trainees the chance or the opportunity to practice it and experience it themselves. For any human resource development or training program to be effective, of course, you must first address and identify where are your trainees in terms of that learning pyramid. Where do they exist? How many years of experience do they have? What do they already know about the subject or about the topic? And your goal as a trainer, your goal as someone who will work in the HR department, is to help these trainees, to help these learners move up the pyramid, increase their levels of experience. And for any training program to be effective, you can never say that this one training method is the best way. ما تقدر تقول انه في طريقة واحدة هي المثلى والافضل. You will learn in the course organizational behavior, and you have probably already seen in your other courses like human resources management that there are no best approaches in management. There are no one best approach in management. You can never say that this is the best way to train people or this is the best way to motivate people. There are no best approaches. So the way to go, a good rule of thumb, is that you use a combination of approaches. بدل ما تستخدم طريقة تدريب واحدة فقط، استخدم أكثر من طريقة حتى تتفادى السلبيات وتجمع الإيجابيات من أكثر من طريقة. So here are the basic training methods. We have on-the-job training, OJT. We have classroom approaches, and then we have self-paced or individualized approaches. So on-the-job training, like your co-op, this is training while you are working. And then classroom approaches, where you go to a classroom, where you go to a training hall. And then self-paced, like those e-learning courses that you are studying for your assignment, for example. Self-paced, it means that you are the one who decides. Who decides how fast or how slow you want to go. Okay, so let's begin with the first category, which is on-the-job training, OJT. A good example of on-the-job training is your co-op, inshallah. So your cooperative training is part of on-the-job training. It's an example of on-the-job training where you are training while you are performing your job duties. So it's training that happens at your regular working station, at your regular working place. And most, if not all, employees do receive some sort of on-the-job training and some sort of coaching while they are performing their jobs. What this slide is telling us is that much of OJT, on-the-job training, is actually conducted informally, meaning there is no formal structure, there is no careful planning or thought that went into it. However, it does happen one way or another. When your colleague, when your supervisor, when your workmates, your team members are helping you while you are performing your job, are helping you understand the job better and perform some of your tasks and duties and responsibilities, this is part of on-the-job training, even though it is done informally. However, when we are talking about structured on-the-job training, in this case, there is a particular someone who is assigned to you as a trainer, as a coach, as a supervisor, and then this trainer is going to be recognized by the department, the management, the organization, is going to be rewarded, is going to receive some some compensation for it, and is going to be also trained on how to train you. Remember when we talked about training of the trainers, train the trainer programs? So before you can train someone on the job, it is a good idea that the organization provides some training for you so that you can help others and train them on their job duties and responsibilities. There are many practices of on-the-job training. As we mentioned, if your supervisor, co-workers, and even human resource department staff are helping you one way or another perform your job, this is part of on-the-job training. And if you go to a company, inshallah, once you finish all the requirements here in JUC and you go to Sabiq, Ma'adin, whatever, you will be assigned a supervisor, one from the college and another from the organization. So there, it means that there is a structure to your training. Another point is that the majority of organizations do provide some training for those people who are going to be assigned as your supervisors. As we mentioned, those train the trainer programs. This is why this is a good course, a good certificate that you can obtain in order to improve your chances of landing a better job. And then in general, we always say that there are always challenges when it comes to securing the support of management in the organization to support training. But when it comes to on-the-job training, it looks like most managers and most senior level management actually expresses their support for their on-the-job training practices. Now, what are the advantages? What are the benefits of formal on-the-job training? It facilitates transfer of learning. Remember when we talked about transfer of training, we said that this is transfer of the skills and the things that you have learned from the training scenario into the workplace. Now imagine if the training scenario is your workplace, it means that you have an immediate chance to practice what you learn. بدل ما تتعلم في كورس في واحدة من قاعات التدريب والفنادق ولا الجامعات، وبعدين بعد شهر ولا شهرين تيجي تحاول تطبقها في بيئة العمل، لا، انت قاعد تتمرن في بيئة العمل نفسها. فعندك an immediate opportunity to practice directly what you are being trained in. And of course this is going to improve and enhance transfer of training and transfer of the knowledge, skills, abilities, all the things that you are learning, because even the environment is identical. The environment in which you are being trained is identical to your job environment. And then there is of course a reduction, and a good advantage is that there is a reduction of cost, because we are not sending you abroad, we are not sending you to another training institution, for example, we are the company and we are training you in our own facilities. So there are no additional costs over here. Just because there are a number of good advantages, it doesn't mean that OJT is perfect. This is why we always say there is no one best approach. So there are some limitations, there are some restrictions to OJT. For example, there are physical constraints to the job environment that might exist. For example, imagine that you are being trained at your desk, at your office. لما يكون جالس معاك السوبرفايزر ولا المدرب ولا زميلك في العمل وقاعد يحاول يشرح لك مهامك الوظيفية at your desk, at your cubicle. في ناس رايحة جاية, في noise, there are distractions, and all of these things can inhibit learning, can become like an obstacle to your training. And then sometimes when you are training your staff on the use of equipment, what if they break it down? It means that this is a great cost that you will incur. لما تيجي تدرب بعض الموظفين مثلا على استخدام بعض المعدات الغالية جدا، احنا قلنا on the job training you are being trained while you perform the job. طيب افرض انه خربها، افرض انه انت قاعد تدربه على خدمة العملاء وما عرف يخدم عميل جيد والعميل هذا اخذ فلوسه وراح الى مكان اخر. Now you lost a customer. How are you going to prepare to repair that damage? So of course there are limitations that you need to consider. Additional limitations can also include things like safety hazards. Safety hazards, which means imagine those operators who work in Sabic and Aramco. Imagine if you don't give them proper training before they come to the plant, before they go to the oil refineries. لما تيجي تدرب المشغلين حق مصانع سابك ومصافي أرامكو قبل لا يدخلون أصلا المصنع، كيف راح يعرفون المخاطر والإصابات اللي ممكن يتعرضون لها؟ So of course there are some big limitations to on-the-job training which you need to consider before, during, and after implementing an initiative. So on-the-job training, we have 4 different categories. We have JAIT, which is job instruction training. We have rotation, coaching, and mentoring. For job instruction training, this is defined as a sequence of instructional procedures used by the trainer to train employees while they are working in their assigned job. Basically, we have a number of steps that the trainer, that the supervisor is going to implement with you while you are being assigned to your post. And these steps are, number 1, preparing the worker. So as a supervisor, inshallah, in the future, you will have to make sure that these people, these trainees that you are going to train, are prepared. How are you going to prepare them? First of all, put them at ease, make them relax. And then you have to find out what do they already know about the subject. Then you have to give them some motivation. Remember, there was a question in your midterm exam about pre-training motivation. And then you will set up the task. So of course this is going to be an important step لأنه هذا هو التحضير. This is how is the employee, how is the trainee going to know what to expect and what is expected of them before they are presented with this important pieces of information. And then step number 2, now you present the task. And there's a good flow that you can follow in order for your explanation to be effective. So tell, show, explain, demonstrate. Like when you are writing an essay in your course English composition, they always say that a good rule of thumb is that tell people what you are going to tell them. So this is your introduction, and then actually tell them. So this is the body of your essay, and then tell them what you told them. This is your conclusion. So you can follow the same kind of approach when you are explaining or presenting a task to your trainees. So tell them about the task, show them how the task is done, explain it, explain the steps, explain why these steps are important, and then demonstrate. And then you have to practice it with them. And of course, the presentation of the task should be done in a way so that trainees understand the task and can replicate it, can copy it, can imitate your behavior. Then step number 3, practice. Now the trainees have to practice it. Now you explained it, you demonstrated it. Now it's time for them to actually practice it themselves. So have them perform it. And we always say that there is a concept called deliberate practice. So it's not only just inactively doing the task over and over again, but you have to give them feedback. كيف راح يعرفون إذا قاعدين يسوون المهمة بطريقة صحيحة إذا ما أعطيتهم feedback? If you don't give them feedback, they will never know whether or not they understood the job correctly or not. And then reinforce correct behavior. How do you reinforce correct behavior? Reward people, reward trainees for doing a good job, and then maybe I will not say punish them, but give them constructive criticism when they are not doing the job correctly. Practice is extremely important, and the amount of time that you allow for practice is a major factor in the success of this training initiative overall. And then of course finally follow up. So not only do you just make them practice it once, twice, or 2, 3, 4 times, and then you say good job and you leave. You make sure that they can repeat that behavior in different situations. You make sure that they can do it on their own. Sometimes trainers do not give that much attention. انت الآن لما كنت تعلم أخوك الصغير السواقة مثلا، لما انت كنت معاه هو حاسس بالأمان وحاسس بالثقة، فقادر انه هو يؤدي ويسوق السيارة بطريقة صحيحة. مجرد انه انت ما تكون جنبه راح يبدأ يحس بالخوف أكثر وربما يجيب العيد. You always have to make sure that they can do it on their own, and then you have to check performance periodically. From time to time, check whether or not they are able to do this task in the right way. And then finally, you can just you can just disappear. Basically, you can just make sure that they do not need you for this task anymore. Now the second method is rotation. This is quite straightforward. When you go for your co-op also, you will be hopefully involved in some job rotation. Rotation is when you are rotated along different sections or different departments. It involves a series of assignments within a department or throughout different departments. لما تروح للكو-op راح تشتغل في إدارة الموارد البشرية, for example. In the human resources department, there is a training section, there's a recruitment section, there is the compensation section. So throughout your 14 or 15 weeks of co-op, you will spend some time in each and every one of those sections. لما تجلس شهر في التوظيف وشهر في التدريب وشهر في التطوير. Now this is called rotation. The whole point of rotation is to give you broader exposure so that you understand the linkages between these different sections or different departments. Coaching, this typically involves an employee and their supervisors. Coaching involves employees and their supervisors, which focuses on examining employees' performance and taking actions in order to make sure that effective performance is being maintained and any problems with performance are being corrected and addressed. So typically you will have someone who will always work with you, who will train you, who will coach you in performing your job. Mentoring, however, involves a senior manager. Mentoring involves someone, not only a supervisor, because a supervisor is someone who is someone who typically has like 5 years of experience. But when we are talking about mentoring, we are talking about someone with 20 years of experience, for example. We are talking about someone who works as a VP. We are talking about someone who works as an executive president or something. Now in here, you as a fresh graduate or as a new manager, you are being paired with someone like that, and they will give you support, they will give you advice, they will help you, they will prepare you in order to assume more responsibility in the future even. كثير برامج الآن في الشركات قاعدة تركز على الشغلة هذه، وفي برامج من جمعية مسك، مؤسسة محمد بن سلمان الخيرية. This is exactly what they do. They pair you, they make you accompany someone who has lots of years of experience in order for you to look at them as role models. لما انت تكون مع شخص ناجح جدا، رئيس شركة او مدير يعني جهة حكومية كبيرة او رجل اعمال خبير جدا، راح يكونون لك كقدوة، وانت راح يعني تتعلم منهم اشياء كثيرة لما انت تكون معهم دائما. They will support you, they will give you advice, and they will guide you. Now, classroom training. We mentioned now all of these things that we have studied so far were focused on the job training. So it means that you are being trained while you are on the job. Now let's talk about the different method of training, which is classroom training. This is now when you are sent to a classroom in order for you to learn with a trainer, with a teacher, with a professor, or someone else. So this is conducted outside of the normal work setting typically. غالبا ما يحصل في بيئة العمل، غالبا يكون في مكان آخر، زي موظفين سابق لما يجون عندنا الكلية مثلا، زي موظفين القطاعات الحكومية لما يروحون معهد الإدارة العامة. So these are examples of classroom training. So it has advantages and disadvantages. عشان كذا قلنا ما في طريقة واحدة هي الأفضل. So some of the advantages is that through classroom training, you can use a variety of training techniques. And this is something that was a limitation of on-the-job training, for example. It minimizes distractions and create a learning climate. بدل ما في ناس رايحة وجاية قدام مكتبك وانت ما انت عارف تركز على الكورس اللي انت قاعد بتدرسه، الآن لا، انت we eliminated all the distractions. You are only focused on this training course. And of course, classrooms can accommodate a larger number of trainees. However, the disadvantages include more cost. احنا قلنا في on the job training, a good advantage of on the job training is that it saves you money. لكن in classroom training, now we are actually paying more. طبعا you will pay more, you will have to rent a classroom, you will have to pay a professor, and of course these things cost more. And another disadvantage is that it is not the same as the job setting, as the work environment. فبالتالي this is why people sometimes always say that classroom training, we don't like it because it doesn't offer us a similar training, a similar setting to our jobs. نيجي نشتغل نطبق شغلات في الكلاس روم, we find ourselves doing a very good job. مجرد انه احنا نرجع لشركاتنا ما عاد نعرف نسوي شيء. ليش؟ لانه البيئة هنا غير البيئة هناك. So of course this is a disadvantage that you need to keep in mind. Now there are 5 categories of classroom training. There are 5 different, let's say, training methods that you can use in a classroom. Lectures, discussions, audiovisual media. Audiovisual, it means, things that use audio and visuals. And then experiential methods, and of course, computer-based training. We will, talk about them one by one. So lectures, this is exactly what we are doing in our classroom. So it's a presentation of information by someone who has experience to a group of people who just sit there and listen. So when all of your lectures in JUC are an example of this approach. So what is an advantage of this? It's a good and efficient way when you are presenting trainees and learners and students with factual information, especially when there is a large number of people. لما انت تيجي تعلم مجموعة من الناس عن نظام، عن أنظمة وقوانين هذه ما فيها وجهات نظر، هو القانون كذا and you have to follow it. So and you have a large number of people that you need to present them with this information. Now this classroom approach, this lecture approach is going to be an efficient way of doing this. What is a disadvantage? Of course, it's going to be lack of sharing info and it's one-way communication. A lot of students, even here in JUC, have always expressed their resentment towards lectures. Why? Because they say it's only a one-way communication. مجرد محاضر أو دكتور قاعد يتكلم وإحنا قاعدين نسمع. We do not like this type of training. We do not like this way of learning. We need to do things ourselves. We need to practice more. But we have to consider the advantages and the disadvantages. When can a lecture be beneficial and when you should probably go for another training method. Now the discussion method. Now this is a way that avoids the one-way communication of lectures, but because it involves a two-way communication. It's a discussion, نقاش بين المحاضر بين الدكتور وبين المتدربين أو المتعلمين أو الطلاب. So this is now a two-way communication, and not only between the trainer and the trainees, but also between the trainees themselves. In a discussion, you are going to discuss the concepts with your professor, with your trainer, and you will also discuss things with your colleagues. So this is another classroom approach that you can employ. What are the limitations of a discussion method? اللي يسمع قبل شوية السلايد الماضي يقول then this is the best way, but you also have to keep in mind there are advantages and disadvantages to everything. So here are some of the limitations. You need a skilled facilitator. لازم يكون عندك واحد كويس عشان يدير النقاش هذا وإلا راح تصير فوضى في الأخير. You need sufficient time in order for a discussion to be effective. ما ينفع discussion مدتها دقيقتين ولا ينفع تخلي الوقت مفتوح. So you need someone who makes sure that they are keeping track of time. And of course, all people who are involved in the discussion must have a reference point, a common understanding. We must always, all of us must be referring to the same thing. المشكلة لما يكون أنا أتكلم عن شغلة وزميلي يتكلم عن شغلة ثانية والبروفيسور أصلا قصده حاجة مختلفة. So it means that we all have to have the same reference. احنا كلنا قرأنا مثلا نفس الارتكل، كلنا قرأنا نفس أو شاهدنا نفس الفيديو، عشان كذا احنا قاعدين الآن making that discussion. Now audiovisual methods, we're not going to focus much on this. This is basically when you are using audio visuals, when you are using sounds, videos, printed materials, brochures, booklets, even PowerPoint slides like these in order for you to explain and train others. Dynamic media, so this is the opposite to static media. So dynamic media are things that move. Anything that is dynamic, it means it moves. So things like videos, CDs, and things like this are of course things that you can also employ and use for your training. Teleconferencing, imagine sometimes that you are engaged in a phone call or in a meeting with someone who is in the US or someone who is in Dubai. So teleconferences are a good way when people are in a remote area. You have probably heard or heard about something called webinars, or you may attended those yourself. So a webinar or like a teleconference is basically attending a meeting through Skype or through any other application that you can do that you can use. So الويبينارز هذه يكون في محاضر موجود في ألمانيا وقاعد يقدم محاضرة أو دورة عن طريق الإنترنت، وتكون منقولة مباشر، بث مباشر لايف. الآن عندك بث مباشر في يوتيوب، بث مباشر في انستغرام، وعندك يعني تطبيقات كثيرة ممكن تستعملها على أساس يعني تطبق الويبينار هذه. As you can imagine, like one of the advantages of doing such a thing is that you can save cost بدل ما أنا أرسل تذكرة للمدرب هذا عشان يجيني السعودية ممكن يسوي لي الدورة من هناك، وبدل ما أنا أرسل متدربين إلى ألمانيا هو يشوفوها من هنا. So there are some savings that can happen because of this method. But of course, you will lack. There are some disadvantages as well, including things like lacking this personal contact, and sometimes because of technical difficulties, you can lose connection. And now the other category, which is experiential methods. So far, we have talked about classroom approaches. We have talked about on-the-job training, and now let's talk about experiential methods. So in experiential methods, from the word itself, you can conclude and infer that we are focusing more on experience. We are focusing more on engaging the trainees in the learning experience itself. So here you have the different types of experiential methods. You have case studies, role playing, behavior modeling, business games, and of course outdoor education. And in the next couple of slides, we will talk about each and every one of them. Okay, so let's begin with case studies. All of you have probably already went through some cases throughout your different courses. So what is the what are the steps of case studies? What is involved in the case study method? It's a rational problem solving process. Basically, you are presented with a scenario, and then there is a problem that you need to address. There is a problem that you need to solve. So how are you going to solve it? This is good for you as a trainee to know, and this is also good for you as a trainer to understand. Because when you are a trainer and you are presenting your class with a case study, you need to know how to guide them in through solving this case. And when you are a student and you are presented with a case study, you need to know how can you tackle it. So you have to identify and restate the important facts. لما تقرأ case study دائما لازم تبدأ تخطط ايش المعلومات المهمة جدا هنا, and you have to restate these important facts. انت تبدأ تصيغها بطريقتك عشان تفهمها بصورة أوضح. And then you have to draw inferences from the facts. لازم تبدأ الآن تسوي بعض الاستنتاجات من هذه المعلومات. والله قالوا لك إنه الشركة فيها عدد اللي استقالوا منها 30% خلال السنة الماضية. So now a conclusion that you can make is that there is a problem there. Are people not happy with salaries? Are people not happy with management? Are people not happy with their work? So you have to draw some conclusions, some inferences from these facts that you have highlighted. And then you have now to state the problem. So now you have to say, now this is the problem. This is the problem. And then you have to develop alternative solutions and of course state consequences of each. الآن عرفنا إيش المشكلة بالضبط. حددت أنت إيش المشكلة في السيناريو اللي عندك. And now you have to develop solutions. لازم تبدأ يعني تستخرج هذه الحلول. ولكل حل لازم إنه أنت تحدد إيش اللي راح ينبني على الحل هذا. يعني إذا طبقت الحل الأول راح يصير كذا كذا كذا. إذا طبقت الحل الثاني راح يصير كذا كذا. You have to make sure that you understand the implications and the consequences of your solutions. And then you have to determine and support a course of action. So now how are we going to implement this solution? أنت قررت إنه عندك مشكلة في تسرب الموظفين. People are resigning and leaving your organization. Now your solution is that you will improve the work environment. راح أحسن بيئة العمل. طيب هذا كان الحل. وحددت أنت إيش اللي راح يصير إذا حسنا بيئة العمل. Now you have to talk about how. أنت كيف راح تحسن بيئة العمل. هل راح تغير مكاتب الموظفين؟ هل راح تدرب السوبرفايزرز على طريقة تعاملهم مع الموظفين؟ You have to state your course of action. A second category over here is business games and simulations. These are fun, interesting ways in order to help managers and decision makers understand how to make a decision. and there will be an example posted on our Blackboard where you will see one of those business games being employed by a trainer in order to help senior managers understand how to lead a work team, for example. The whole point of these business games is that it's like learning by doing something that is fun, instead of only making it something that is intense and information focused. You learn by doing something enjoyable and fun. Role playing. In the role playing techniques, there are many things that can happen. When you are role playing, you are acting, basically. You are acting. So we will tell you now, imagine that you are the CEO of Amazon. Imagine that you are the president of SABIC, and we will give you a problem and we will tell you how are you going to address that problem. Okay, we will ask you how are you going to address it in your role as the president of SABIC or as the CEO of Amazon or whatever in Apple. So you are presented with a situation. راح نعطيك كذا قصة ستوري فيها تتعلق بجهة العمل. And then you will be assigned a role or a character. راح نقول لك انت المدير، انت المدير المالية، انت اخصائي، او انت موظف جديد، او انت عميل. And then we will ask you to act out the role with one or more other trainees. كأنكم قاعدين تمثلون مسرحية، لكن بدل ما هي مسرحية تمثيلية درامية فقط، هي you will have to respond to the situations at hand. And behavior modeling, another category over here. This is when you are observing someone performing a job and then you have to copy them. You have to model their behavior. بكلمات أخرى نقدر نقول إنه هنا أنت قاعد تتابع شخص أو تشاهد شخص قاعد يقوم بالمهمة هذه بمهمة ما، وأنت دورك وهدفك إنك أنت تطبق كل اللي سواه هذا الشخص. So someone is doing something, you are observing and watching them, and then you have to copy them. Okay, so you have to consider the following. There must be a discussion of the key components of this behavior. ما هو بس انه احنا بس شفت شخص وطبقت زيه وخلاص. لازم الشخص هذا يتكلم معك. انا ليش سويت كذا؟ انت تسأله انت ليش سويت كذا ما سويت كذا؟ Why did you suggest this to the customer and not another thing? You have to practice the target behavior through the role playing. You have to have a discussion and make sure that you are really copying the key behaviors in the model, and then there must be some feedback involved. لاحظوا كم مرة ذكرنا كلمة feedback throughout our course. Feedback is of great importance. مجرد انه انت you are copying someone who is successful, it doesn't guarantee successful performance. لازم الشخص هذا يتكلم معك ويقول لك this is exactly why we did this or why we did that. And then another fun, interesting category over here is outdoor education. And this is when people go for like some exercises. Typically it's done again for senior managers, for senior decision makers. أرامكو أحيانا تسويها، كثير شركات عالمية تسويها. They will take their VPs, senior managers, they will take them for a hike in a mountain, or they will take them for something called a corporate retreat, where they will train them through doing some physical exercises. تحصل مثلا مباراة كرة طائرة، تحصل مثلا تسلق جبال، تحصل مثلا تجديف خلال نهر. So all of these activities are intended to send a message. So after you have practiced this, they are in, the message behind it is that you are doing it for a purpose. They want to see and judge, for example, who is going to show leadership qualities, who is going to prove that they can work under pressure, who is going to step up to the challenge. And in general, they focus on problem solving and team building. Who is going to keep the team focused? Who is going to be so stressed out that they are going to just explode and not be able to cope with the pressure? So this is the purpose of this outdoor education. And now computer-based training. Most, if not all of you, have done something in computer-based training. All of those e-learning courses, for example, that you have studied, بالنسبة للassignment حقكم, for example, is one variety of computer-based training. It is interesting. It saves money and it saves time. It saves effort. It is self-paced. You decide how fast or how slow you want to go, and then can be almost limitless interplay between instructor and individual-based computer training. So it's done completely through using computers. Sometimes there is no instructor. You are just given the material, you have to study it, take a quiz or something, and then you can pass or fail. And sometimes there is an instructor, like, and still this instructor is doing things on the computer, not in person. So self-paced CBT, computer-based training, it has a number of advantages over other training methods. It mirrors the one-on-one relationship between student and tutor, which means that it gives you the same feeling that you will experience when there is an instructor, and then it provides immediate feedback. لما انت اخذت الكويز اونلاين حقنا مثلا كويز 1 which was an online quiz، مجرد ان انت تضغط سبميت تطلع لك الدرجه مباشره، وتطلع لك فين الاخطاء حقتك، وتطلع لك ايش الاجوبه الصحيحه. So this is an immediate feedback because of the use of technology. Now, since we are talking about technology in training, we must also mention intranets, not the internet, but intranets, الشبكات الداخلية اللي داخل كل شركة. So through intranets, you can do a lot of things. So using your internal computer networks within the organization, you can do a lot of things as an HRD professional. You can communicate with learners. تقدر ترسل لهم ايميلات، تقدر تحط اعلانات عن الدورات التدريبيه، تقدر ترسل بروشورز، تقدر ترسل روابط ل interesting websites and things like this. You can conduct a needs assessment and other tasks. تقدر ترسل surveys هذه والاستبيانات وغيرها in order for them to answer it, and then you can evaluate them. And of course you can transmit course materials, training documents and multimedia programs, which means تقدر ترسل كل الشغلات المتعلقة بالكورس عن طريق الشبكة الداخلية للشركة. وأخيرا you can administer tests، تقدر تسوي حتى الاختبارات والكوزز والassessments through this intranet. And this is actually something that is being highly utilized by companies. ما راح تروح شركة زي التصنيع، أرامكو، سابق، الصحراء، سبكم وغيرها إلا كلهم يستعملون الشبكات الداخلية عندهم in order for them to do things like these, to send out announcements, to conduct training sessions, to give you materials, brochures, whatever, surveys throughout this intranet. So we have come to the end of our chapter. We talked a lot about how to implement training programs, the different training methodologies that you can use, and the advantages and the limitations of both. Thank you for listening. I will see you inshallah on the next chapter.